How does it feel just being a full-time coach? Because you've been in the program, as you mentioned, but just being back on the field first time, just kind of how has it been for you this spring?
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I'm like a kid on Christmas morning every day, man. Now I can kind of put my spin on the guys and get to go out every day and coach them, and it's kind of a different role. The last one I was in, I couldn't do as much on the field coaching. So it's awesome, man. I'm having a lot of fun.
You've been around, bounced around. How hard is it to secure a job like you did?
Man, it's really hard. It's all about timing and being at the right place at the right time. And, it seems like, every coach you work for tells you that they want to promote you and, hey, you're the next guy. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. But I'm so grateful for Coach Lake for actually following through and giving me my opportunity, man. It's awesome.
You found out that you had the job. What was your reaction?
I remember, like it was yesterday. It was Friday afternoon. We had a half day, and I was jogging around Lake Union, and he called me, and I almost hit my knees, man. I was speechless. I mean, I was holding back tears. I mean, it was awesome. It was an unreal experience.
What were you doing before? Kind of what was a day like in your previous role?
A day in my previous role, so I was the quality control. So I was doing, like, this time of year, I wasn't doing a whole lot besides helping Coach Malloy and Coach K with whatever they needed for their meetings. And then kind of getting ready for like our summer scouting projects, who were playing the first 4 games, things like that. I did a lot of opponent scouting, basically working ahead from week to week. So when we buried the game on Sunday, I had everything ready to go Sunday night so those guys could get a head start on the next week's opponent.
Obviously, you were never a West Coast kid growing up and everything. I'm wondering was it a shock at all moving out here? What has the immediate impression been of landing in Seattle?
Yeah, no, it's been great, man. So yeah, like you said, I've been Southeast kind of my whole life, kind of bounced around to different places. Never been west of Oklahoma before I came out here, and I drove out here, and I was, once you hit Colorado and get into the mountains, you're kind of just like, holy cow, where am I? Like, I'm going 30 miles per hour on the freeway, just looking around. So it's been great, man. It's beautiful out here. I remember I came up for my interview. It was very similar to a day like this, and it was just not a cloud in sight, mountains and water everywhere. I love the South, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't even compare. You don't see anything like it around there. It's just all pine trees. And so it's been great, man. It's beautiful. I love it.
I lived in Atlanta a couple years, so I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
How did you get your nickname?
I was named after my granddad. His name was Elwin Phillips Rowan. That's my name. They called him Rip. And it's just kind of from birth, everybody started calling me Rip.
Not necessarily football related.
No football related. I wish I knew a backstory or where it got started. I just don't, man. I really wish I had something better for you guys.
So the progression as a coach that the kids have to learn, when they come into college. What about you? Some of the things that you're now learning, and how much of the stuff do you keep? The little book you keep of your trades and then what other coaches have done, kind of.
Right. Well, I think I've been doing that since, somebody told me right when I first started my first GA job, hey, keep a track of things that you like that this coach did and maybe things that you didn't like. So I've been doing that for 5 or 6 years. And, I've been lucky to be around some really good coaches, whether it's position coaches, coordinators, head coaches. So I got stacked full of notebooks just with a bunch of notes I've taken from classroom management to on the field, drill progression, to opponent scouting, how you're getting guys ready from week to week basis. So now I'm ready to apply them, man. I feel like I got some good things and I'm still learning. I think as a coach, you should always be trying to adapt and trying to learn. So, but you're right. I have a nice notebook of all that stuff I've kept track of, and now it's finally a good time to use them. I'm fired up.
So I'll jump in and ask this question. Film study is so critical in this business. I'm wondering if in each position as you go up the rung, do you have to learn how to study the film differently with your job expansion or not?
Yeah, I think kind of what helped me in my last role as the QC is because I kind of had to look at all 11, and I learned early that it always starts front wise, and then you kind of work your way back. So yeah, I think as the QC, that definitely helped me look at all 11. And now, like I always tell the guys, like defense is a puzzle. Like, all right, they have to know in their box where they need to be, but they also have to know why. If I'm just telling them to do something like, hey, you got to stay right here, but why do I have to stay right here? So I think that part has helped. Like getting to look at all 11, getting to study offenses and what they're doing. I think that has definitely helped me in my transition for sure.
So had you already scouted Michigan last summer for what was supposed to be your opener then?
Yeah, man, it seems like we scouted 20 opponents and played 4 games. So yeah, we scouted, I scouted Michigan last summer.
Keep that on file.
Yeah, I keep everything. I still have stuff from my 2015 in Southern Miss. Like you keep everything because you never know when you're going to go play that coordinator again or something like that. So yeah, I keep everything. With the computers these days, it makes it easy, get the hard drives and everything. So
What are the biggest things you've had to show Taki and Thule, who are the returning starters, and the guys behind them? What have they needed from you?
I think just preaching consistency day in and day out. Like for example, we've had games the past 2 years I've been here where we've been really good and then maybe not so good the next week. So I think they need to hear consistency. All right, they've put good stuff on tape before, but not on a consistent basis. So that's really in our room what we are preaching, like day in and day out. We have to be consistent. We have to be the same. We have to bring it every day. So I think that is the biggest thing.
Coach Malloy mentioned you actually got to lead a couple of team position meetings for him last season, and how much has that helped kind of having him still on staff and just making that transition easier?
Yeah, I'm very thankful for Coach Malloy and my development. You want to talk about I've been around a lot of guys, and you want to just talk about an unselfish guy when it comes to not just molding his players, but molding me as well. Like, talk about caring about everybody in your room. Coach Malloy did that, giving me confidence to lead a group. I wouldn't be here in this position without him. So I'm very thankful for that. And consistent feedback, it was like, if I got to do something, he was right there. Hey, could have done this better. Or I really like how you did this, but maybe think about that. So I'm very thankful for Coach Malloy. I really am. Like I said, I wouldn't be here without him.
When you talk about taking examples and notes from other coaches you've been around, when it comes to recruiting, what are some of the things that you've taken just from seeing other guys throughout your time?
Yeah, so the good recruiters I've been around, it's all about building the relationship, right? It's not just recruiting the kid, it's recruiting the family, finding out who's important to them, what's important to them. And it makes it easy because we've had such a good plan when it comes to recruiting. So I've got to be around the guys for 3 years and kind of see how they do it. And it's the same, like taking good notes on how guys interact. Maybe it's like, I'm watching Coach Huff recruit O-linemen, seeing what he's doing. I'm watching KB recruit running backs, seeing if I can pick up ideas. So, yeah, it's the same deal. You're taking notes and seeing what's good and what works for me, too, right? Like, I'm not going to be the same as everybody else. I got to be myself at the end of the day because, like I said, recruiting's all about relationships, man. So it's been good to be here.
Hey, Rip, to add on to that, in the 3 years you've been here, how involved were you on the on-campus recruiting aspect? Were there certain roles or certain responsibilities that they gave you?
Not really. When they got here, I would be around and, I would get to know the families and stuff. But in my role, I could not do a lot of recruiting. So, when they came on campus, I could talk to the families and do anything like that. But I was never like hosting anybody or in charge of one family or the other. But still, it's like that's what's great about it. You get to meet people from all walks of life. So when we finally got them on campus, it was just making relationships, making sure they know my name, and trying to get a good bond. But I was only here for 1 year while we were bringing guys on campus, so it was a very short time.
Do you feel like that's something that comes naturally to you?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, like somebody said, I'd never been on the West Coast. When I came out here, I didn't know a soul. And I like to feel like I got a good relationship with everybody on staff. So, and I bounced around a lot. I feel like every job I took, and I've not really known a lot of people. So I've been in 3 or 4 different spots and at different parts of the Southeast and kind of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but well-versed when it comes to different types of backgrounds and people.
When you talked about learning from other coaches, since you've been here, what are kind of the biggest things you've kind of taken from Jimmy Lake and how he runs the defense, runs the program?
I think the biggest thing I've taken from Coach Lake is you got to be a teacher. You got to be a really good teacher. And with that comes finding different ways to teach different kids. Not everybody's going to be the same. So if your approach in your meetings is the same every day, okay, you might be really helping 4 guys in your room, but there might be 3 guys that are like, Coach, I'm just not getting it. So I think the biggest thing is switching up your meetings, how you're running your meetings, maybe spending more time with one kid on the field as opposed to in the classroom. Because some guys don't really learn well in the classroom. You have to get their feet to the grass and do it. So I think that's the biggest thing, like teaching. I think since I've been here, I've been around some of the best teachers when it comes to football and life I've ever been around. So I think that's the biggest aspect.
With your family, your dad being involved in football, your grandpa being involved in football, how prevalent was that as a kid growing up? Did you play other sports too, or was football kind of the focus from an early age?
Yeah, I played other sports. I think when I got to high school, I might have played baseball for a year, but it was always football. I remember, probably when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and I kind of started realizing what was going on. I just remember watching Falcons games and things like that. Yeah, so it's always been football. Well, even with my mom's side, her dad was a coach, and he was a scout in the NFL when I was 10, 11, 12. So he was always, I remember we'd go up to NFL games, we'd sit in the very top row, and he'd have his binoculars, and me and my brother would just be sitting there like, Granddad, we can't see anything, like we sit a little closer. But yeah, so it's always been football with my family. It really has.
Coach, like mentioned, Marty Kiffin gave a recommendation for you, and you spent, I think, 2 years at Florida Atlantic with him.
Yeah.
Kind of how invaluable was that?
Oh man, Coach Kiff, I wouldn't. That's one guy I wouldn't be here without him. I mean, not on just picking up the phone, but I mean, when I was a GA at Florida Atlantic, I was still, as I like to say, green when it comes to the game. And like when the coaches would go on the road, he would sit me in the meeting room and just make me get up there and talk football. Just talking football was like the biggest. Like as a GA, especially your first couple of years, you're scared to death when somebody's like, "Hey, get up here and draw up this and explain me that," and let alone it being a Hall of Fame coach. So he was, man. I still talk to him this day every week, man, and he's asking me how it's going, making sure I'm teaching the right things. So that was invaluable. Really, really, all the Kiffins, man, they were really good to me, and I wouldn't be here without them.
When you first got the job, Rick, what was your initial impression of the group that you had to work with?
The D-line group?
Yeah, the players.
Oh, man, it's a great group. And when I got here, it was, I think, Benning senior year, so Levi and Bronson, those guys who had been around for a little bit. So it was kind of a mix of guys that played a lot of ball, and then the younger half of the group who hasn't played a lot of ball. You're talking at this Hockey and Thule were redshirt freshmen, Fatui and Bandez and Draco, and those guys were a little bit new, hadn't played a whole lot. So it's kind of a mixed bag. So it's a good group, man. It always has been.
Let's let Coach go. We got Coach Harris out in the hallway. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.